Welcome to Casa Fuzetta, the House of Stories, with me, Tara.
And me, Kate. Early in 2024, Conde Nast Traveller named Casa Fuzetta one of the best yoga retreats in the world. In the previous episode, Tara, you shared how you made your first visit to Portugal in late September 2013. You parked your brain at passport control on your way into Faro Airport, and then within less than 3 months found yourself the owner of 2 derelict buildings. We finished that episode with you making sensible decisions, in fact, about your choice of architects faced with these 2 derelict buildings. And you were avoiding the distraction of 2 very young and very cute architects in favor of, I'm sure, extremely attractive, but older, more seasoned, experienced guides.
Indeed, I think the fear in the eyes of the younger architects when they saw the scale of what we were going to undertake, frankly, really was not what I needed. I had plenty of fear on my side already.
Okay, so you felt the fear, but did it anyway?
Yes. Frankly, what else was I going to do? We were all in. And now the challenge was to create a thing of beauty and to offer a place of retreat that could be positive not only for us, but also the community we wanted to become a part of. And in fact, Todd was always super, super clear about that he wanted that whatever Casa Fuzetta was going to become, it would be something that would be of benefit to the town and to Olhão and the people within it, rather than something that took away from them or stole from their livelihood.
Gotcha. And actually, the story of how the community have welcomed you in is absolutely lovely, but it might be just jumping ahead a little bit, and we'll come on to that. Let's take you back to the point at which you now have architects for these buildings and this project, but you still have a really long way to go. Did things get any easier from that point?
We were so lucky at that point in time. The professional services, whether it was the architects, the interior designers, the builders, to be honest, there was hardly any work around going at that time. So they were really keen to work with us. I mean, it's a completely different kettle of fish now. And also, we're pre-Brexit, big help.
Big help.
And the exchange rate was in our favour. I don't think we couldn't afford to do it now. And the local town hall were really happy and obliging, to the point where the architect, the lead architect, he was just like going, "Oh my God, even he was talking about the fact that you've got a guardian angel for this project." The town hall, what they did, that's just like, he'd been a professional architect for sort of 25, 30 years. He was like, I have never seen a town hall offer you and give you the support, anything wonderful like this.
And wasn't there some amazing story about Todd at this point?
So if we fast forward a little bit to sort of January 2016, so at this point we're sort of 2 years in.
Right, okay.
We're 2 years in. Todd, my darling guys, it's not a great one for getting involved. Gritty of the
big picture thinker, not detail guy.
That would be fair to say. Muggins here had been navigating through all of these things.
I remember there was a lot about plugs as well.
No, anyway. I think it was more about he wouldn't get involved in those kinds of discussions.
Gotcha.
Anyway, the point being that 2 years in, I'm like going, actually the builders and the architects, everybody just thinks now that they haven't seen you in such a long time. They think that you're a figment. They're coming to believe that you're a figment of my imagination. So also at this point, you have actually already issued invitations to your spooky crew to come for a long weekend to celebrate the opening of the house and give it a blessing. But at this point, I'm being told by everybody that it's going to need at least another 12 months to finish. And I have 6 months. And therefore, if you want to keep the pressure up, you're going to need to come over and help with that. Yeah, probably in the January, Todd comes, and true to form, within certainly under 5 minutes, he has left the meeting, the project meeting with all of the professionals.
Wandered off on the detail bit.
Literally, Johnny head in the air is wandering around the house. And because, again, it's another beautiful sunny day, he's poking his head out of the window. And he's on the first floor and he's poking his head out and looking down onto the street. He sees this older couple with what we now know were their 3 grandsons from Brazil, looking up at the house. And this man, their grandfather, calls up and says, "Is this your house?" And I was, "Oh, yes, it is." And he goes, "I am the grandson of Carlos Fuzetta.
Oh my God.
I unveiled the plaque that we talked about earlier
Wow.
when I was about 7 years old."
Wow.
So it doesn't,
wait there.
Don't move. I'm coming down. And it was just extraordinary. And it was extraordinary because then they were saying that he hadn't been to the house in over 30 years.
Did he live in Brazil?
No, he and his wife lived in Lisbon, but the grandsons were over. They'd been over for Christmas from Brazil, and they had begged the grandparents to come down and to show them the house, or somehow they were in the Algarve and they were like, "Please show us the house that we've heard so much about. We want to see it." And so it was literally a passing. Exactly. I mean, that's seriously. One of our sort of.
I've just gotten goosebumps.
Yeah. It was incredible. And very quickly, there wasn't a dry eye in the house because they were just. No. They were gorgeous and really lovely people. It did make me slightly smile because they were like going, "It's just as I remember it." And I'm like, not quite sure. The room has the outside down. I'm not sure there's a room in the house. I haven't moved a wall or two. But they were really lovely. And then they were turned, because somehow or other I did manage to get it all finished by June. And they came to join.
Wow. A podcast in itself.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, pretty much. And they came to join us as our first guests.
Wow.
When we had a first big dinner on the kitchen terrace with the big kitchen.
Oh, really?
And it all came together.
That is quite a story.
And it was really, and it was very much a sort of a passing of the keys, handing over.
Yeah.
The baton was passed.
That's just amazing connection, and to have that original sort of energy from them in the house kind of passed on in that way, that's incredible.
It's truly extraordinary, and that's what I mean. That hence the sort of the title of the podcast, The House of Stories, because there are a couple of more that probably worth sharing at this point. Because there we were. It was, oh my God, a race to the finish to get to this June date to be able to welcome everybody in. I still, if I shared the photographs of what the place looked like at the beginning of June when I flew over to try for the final big push.
Crazy. You're talking about a 12-month project timeline squeezed into 6.
Yes.
And not even hey, we're setting this deadline. There's a hard stop because we have people. We have people who are going to be in beds.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Bathrooms that need to work and kitchen that needs to function.
3-week period, I have the photographic evidence to prove this. I arrived, and it was literally, I still remember it because it was just before the effing Brexit vote, which obviously sticks in all of our minds. But anyway, a week or so before the Brexit vote, I arrive, and it is a complete building site. And as you say, I literally have 21 days to go from building site to clean, functioning bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchen. At least, though, truth be told, there were a few little bits like swimming pool and sitting room that was just like, okay, we've got to prioritise.
Yeah.
But we had to go from building site to furniture in, beds made, clean, kitchen functioning, all of that. I have no idea how we did it.
Nothing like a deadline, right?
Nothing like a deadline. Nothing like, because the builders will, this is impossible. And I'm going, I'm calling in the chips. The last 2 years, we've been the only building project in town. Now, of course, there are other building projects, but we kickstarted it. I'm calling in my chips. You get everybody off the other building projects in order to finish this. And so at one point, I think we probably had 60 odd people working on site to finish it.
That's a small town.
Yes.
Village.
Yes.
That's
and
amazing.
all the furniture came in one day.
Wow.
And fortunately, I'd had the foresight a month or so before to suddenly go, ooh, there's rather a lot of stuff coming in.
Ooh.
I need a plan. So I put together a spreadsheet. And also to bear in mind that there was stuff that was coming out of storage that had been put into storage by my great-grandparents. I had never seen. I had no photos. I had no dimensions. Wow. Anyway, somehow or other,
fun
I had...
and scary.
Yeah, completely
or
mental.
Scary and fun. One of the two, I'm not sure. Yeah.
I think, anyway, so we had these 2 articulated lorries who couldn't get into Olhão because they were too big to get through to navigate the little streets. So they were parked outside of town, and then everything was offloaded into a smaller van to get to the front door. And then it was a race because, of course, everything had been packaged up and so we had to open stuff up. And there was a race to get stuff open and scattered across the house to their right location before the next lorry arrived.
And this was all in one day?
All in one day. And not a single piece has moved.
Wow.
So somehow or other, again, that moments of inspiration when I went, okay, we'll put this here, that there, the blah, blah, blah.
Amazing.
Everything fit.
That's incredible. Just for anybody who hasn't been to the house, one, to be able to think that through in your head and orchestrate that, like teams of people moving things in and out. Let me just back up, no pun intended, to the truck sitting outside and then coming through these beautiful narrow streets in Olhão, not pronounced correctly, with, again, on cobblestone streets, with navigating people and dogs and all the things that happen in town, to then get to the house, to then somehow almost, I don't know, it's like unfurling an amazing piece of cloth and it just all arrives in the right spot. There's something truly magical about that.
Yeah, no, it did. It did feel pretty magical. I'm not sure the neighbours felt quite the same way because one part of the process involved throwing all of the cardboard wrapping out of the windows down onto the street, which was the fastest way of doing it.
Totally.
And I had to close my eyes when the health and safety guys don't listen to this bit. But I was watching these beautiful antique chests balanced on, we had a cherry picker for the guys painting the facade, and they would balance these antique chests on the top of the cherry picker to then pass over to the guys inside the house at the top of the house.
Just glad that job is done.
Yes, hand breathe.
And that was one day, all of it.
All of it. All of it, one day. Lots of people.
Amazing.
Fair, yeah. I had to have sharp words with actually one of the interior design crew who was starting to tell me I didn't know what I was doing it, and I said, you have one job. That's to go and fix the beds. See you later.
Yes. Thank you for your opinion. Thank you for your opinion.
Don't need it right now.
Wow. And then you were open for business.
No, now you're fast forwarding another 12 months. But
you worked your magic once. Come on.
Oh my God. But I was thinking, of course, that we would need help on so many levels, but help I needed a house manager, and I thought I had found somebody.
I was going to say, I thought you had somebody lined up. Is that right?
I did have somebody lined up, and it was just like, should have known, too good to be true. She was English, but her parents had moved to Olhão when she was a child. She was obviously a natural English speaker, fluent Portuguese, literally lived in the square behind us, and she'd done multiple seasons running chalets.
Perfect.
So I'm like thinking,
perfect.
excellent hospitality. But it was really odd because and I couldn't understand it. But she never really, I offered her the job, and it was weeks until she replied or would commit. And eventually she said yes. And then I think it was about a week before I flew out for this June.
For all the visitors who would be coming at that point, this is...
For the big push.
Okay.
And she calls to say, I'm really sorry. I've decided that I want to work with animals instead.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, okay.
Good to know.
Good to know.
Maybe not.
But actually, at that point, I'm like, it's okay. Trust.
Did you feel really zen? I think I would have been freaking out like a duck.
No, somehow, I think I've been through so much because also I'd left Jamie's in between all of this. And, the last 2 years of Jamie's were challenging, shall one say. So I'd been through so much that actually my mantra for the whole house and the whole project had somehow or other become trust.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it's okay. And in the process of trying to find a house manager, I'd actually met someone who I had suddenly thought, ooh, I think this person would be better than the person I'd actually already offered the job to. But I stood my ground and so I've made the offer. And Claudia had said she couldn't work full time. So I'm like, that's not going to work for us. Anyway, after I get the call to say it's animals rather than people, I'm like going, it's okay, trust. And lo and behold, the following day, Claudia sends me a message to say, is that job still available? No. Because the other job that I had, I'm not going to do anymore, and I'm available full time. Wow. And I went, thank you, universe. I'll take that. But actually, then it turned out. But then she said, I've got to serve 3 months' notice. So I'm like, and breathe. And lo and behold, the next day, a chef who had been introduced to me by some of the building team rang the doorbell and introduced me to a different Claudia, and who he said she was looking for work, just arrived in Olhão. And I'm like, so Claudia, what brings you here? And she had been an English teacher, Portuguese, but had been an English teacher. So immediately language was was a fit. And I'm like, so what do you do now? Because we were of a similar age. And I'm like, what do you do now? And she said, oh, I'm a crystal healer for chakras, to work with chakras. Would you like me to explain to you what that is? And I'm like, you're in the right place.
Yes.
Come on in.
Amazing.
And she was available to start straight away, but only wanted to,
let me guess,
for the 3 months.
Amazing. Are you serious?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, trust. And literally they arrived. And then
that is literally put it out in the universe.
Yeah.
Give it up. See what happens. Be open.
Yeah.
And it works out. That's amazing. How were your neighbours and the local community through all of this?
Frankly, they couldn't have been nicer. We had immediate next door neighbours who obviously weren't thrilled with the 2 years of construction work, but they were so sweet, really lovely, and absolutely thrilled to say goodbye to the squatters with the big scary dogs. And what was funny is that walking around town, all of the older generation would come and give us little thumbs up signs when we were walking, because they knew the building and they loved the building. And indeed, some people had got together to get a protection order on the building to stop it from being destroyed, when some years before we were around, a developer was chancing their arm and saw the size of the footprint and was like, oh yes, that'll make a nice sort of block of flats, thanks very much. But It got protected. and saved. And the older generation, when electricity first came to Olhão, had all come to the house because the building was the offices for the local electricity board. So they all came there to pay their bills. And certainly judging by the number of requests we came to come and see the house, lots of people had either lived in the house or played in the house or had a cousin who lived in the house. And they came and they either asked if they could come or they just sneaked in when the builders were there to have a little peek. Yeah, but it was cool. And then actually, as we got closer to the finishing line, I started an Instagram account and started sharing what was going on. And that's when things really exploded.
Wow. So that was really unexpected.
It was, because I started the account because I suddenly realized whilst I was coming to the end of this mammoth renovation project, I was going to need to get myself up the next learning curve, which was to build a profile and to raise awareness of Casa Fuzetta. Todd kept on going, build it and they will come. But I was like, oh, I think we have to do a little bit of work.
More.
I think we have to put a bit of work in too.
So why Instagram particularly? Because that's been your primary platform, right?
Yeah, Instagram. Thank you guys. It's been extraordinary. But truth be told, I did have a little bit of an inkling that Instagram would be the place for us, because when Jamie Oliver was my boss, he was a super early adopter of Instagram. And occasionally, when we were flying around the world for different PR trips or tours, we'd have a few hours to kill in the airports, and I'd be sitting there and he'd be teaching me basically what to do. And he loved Instagram of all of the social media platforms because he was always advocating that it had a really creative, supportive, and engaged community. And that, frankly, it was the place you could find your tribe. That's whether you wanted to crochet hats for little kittens in the Outer Hebrides or were super foodie or a fashionista. There was something for everybody. And I was like, okay, I had that I remembered that. So when I'm sitting there with literally blank sheets of paper, it's me and my laptop in London going, scary. I know I was responsible for all of Jamie's marketing and PR and digital strategy around the world, but I never actually had to do anything myself.
Oh my gosh,
I didn't have to take photos or build websites or write content. I wasn't just at the bottom of one learning curve. It felt like I was at the foothill of the Himalayas of learning curves.
Yeah, wow. But you got started and you took the first step and you actually posted, right?
I did.
And what do you remember the first post?
I was trying to look back the other day, but I certainly do know that they would have been some seriously dodgy snaps. I'm pleased to say I think my photographic skills have improved over the last few years. But regardless of the quality, it was really sweet because suddenly I realized how many people, or I quickly discovered how many people in town were on Instagram because they started sending me messages.
Neat.
In fact, my kids at the time, who were quite young at the time, and of course had been drilled in the do not meet anybody in real life that you have met on social media, were like, Mom,
hang on,
you're not supposed to do this. But one of the messages I got was from a lovely couple called Aaron and David, and they lived up the street, literally up the street from us, and sent a message saying, oh yeah, no, we're walking past every day and we're seeing it. It looks amazing, keep going. And because I was going to fly out actually the following week, I said, I'm there, come and have a look inside.
Fantastic. I actually remember Aaron and David. So lovely. They're from Canada, right?
Yeah, they're super, super lovely. They were on a sabbatical from Canada. And in fact, David, his parents were Portuguese, which is why they chose Portugal. And it's amazing. The Canadian system have this thing where you can take 80% of your salary for 4 years. And then for the 5th year, you get 80% again. You keep it's being
smart.
held for you. And what did they do? They tapped into all of the traditional craft and artisanal skills in the area. And actually, Aaron was the artistic creative director for this amazing homeware brand in Canada. And they combined their skills to create
Amazing.
a brand called Casa Cubista.
Which I love.
Yeah, I love. You got on the kitchen table here.
Thanks to my lovely friend Tara.
But you can, we'll include the links in the show notes, because
Definitely.
you can find from Paris to London to New York now, but they started it on their sabbatical five doors down from us.
Because didn't they get a break from someone in Olhão specifically? And I've not pronounced it correctly. Olhão.
Olhão.
Thank you. I'm still working on it.
Yeah, we'll have a particular
Practice.
one. Yeah, extraordinary. One of the most unexpected things about Olhão has been this super talented, creative community that's there and find their way. And one of them is, he's French, but again, I think his parents are Portuguese. He's called Sergio da Silva. And in fact, if you guys are ever in Olhão, you should check out. He has and we'll include links in the show notes. He has a beautiful store called Casa Sergio.
It is lovely.
But that's now back in sort of 2015, 2016, which is what we're talking about. He was the lifestyle editor for nothing less than Elle France. And so he showcased Casa Cubista, and French retail took off. And I think it's a true sign that as a brand, you've made it when you can find knockoff copies in the souks of Morocco, which is exactly what happened when we all went traveling in Morocco last Christmas. I kept on bumping into Casa Cubista knockoffs.
Which definitely is a huge compliment. And didn't Aaron actually help you at Casa Fuzetta?
He did. Because as it slowly dawned on me that I was going to need a website and something significantly better than my dodgy photography, I commissioned a photo shoot. True to form, not at an obvious time. The shoot was going to take place mid-November, but we were spectacularly lucky. And actually, we weren't that lucky. I thought I was lucky at the time. And if you go and have a look at the website, you will, most of the photographs on the website were taken that year in November.
Oh, wow. With
16,
beautiful blue sky.
The beautiful blue skies and this fabulous sunsets. And actually, that is what it's like most of the time in the winter. So it wasn't lucky, but at the time we were still quite early doors, so we didn't know that actually that's quite common for November. But anyway, point being,
Portugal.
Yeah, yes, in Portugal, definitely.
I hasten to add.
Definitely not in London as I look out the window. But anyway, going back to the shoot itself, Jamie always put me in the commercial box and said I wasn't allowed to play with the creatives.
So you got a new paint set today.
Yes and no, because then I did actually suddenly realize I didn't have the creative language to share with the photographer what the art direction and the styling and what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So bless him, I asked Aaron, because I suddenly went, oh, I know somebody who does have those skills. Smart. And he, bless him, he said yes. And actually our neighbours who'd been through all of the trauma of the building works, but were still super lovely. Their daughter was around that week and she was super passionate and willing to help. So between the three of us, we had this sort of marathon sprint. I'm not quite sure how you would describe it. We're running around Casa Fuzetta, getting everything ready for the photo shoot and styling. And Aaron downloaded about sort of 20 years worth of experience and top tips.
Wow.
Amazing. Literally in 2 days. And what he shared that day or those days is still doing us proud.
I also remember somewhere in the recesses of my mind, there was a story about the painting in the library that also came from that day. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes. So that was,
Have I got that?
yes. So on this sprint that we did,
You, Zoe, and Aaron.
yeah, me, Zoe, and Aaron running around like complete lunatics, finding what we could. Anyway, the real message that I took away from those days was that interiors photographies hates an empty space.
Okay.
And that's what we were really looking to do. You can't have empty shelves. So we were styling everything. And you've seen our library.
Yes.
I
I remember the early days and then today.
It's quite big.
Yes.
There's a lot of shelving.
Shelving.
There's a lot of shelving. So we were very busy in that particular area. Anyway, we did this amazing job. And then right in the middle, slap bang in the middle of this space is a big sort of rectangular hole. I think perhaps at some point we must, I don't know why, because we never wanted televisions, but it's almost built for a TV.
Yeah, actually,
the scale, but we don't have a TV. So anyway, the point being, there was this big gaping hole, and Aaron's going, we need to fill it. Art, painting.
yeah.
Have you got anything? And I'm like, shit, no, I don't. And I'm like, ooh, okay. No,
Wasn't this flash of inspiration?
I did have a little thank you. Yes, I did have a flash of inspiration, because the night before I'd been at dinner with one of my favorite people locally, who is a Dutch artist who's been living in Portugal since her parents came down in a camper van when she was about 5, and she's been living in Portugal ever since. Italy, just remembered, they were supposed to be on their way to Canada, and they never made it. Yeah, they never got past Portugal.
Oh, again, you see, there's one of those little sparky connections. Aaron, Canadian.
Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
I did not know that.
No.
So then,
anyway, so where were we? I'd had dinner with Meinke the night before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because in town, she's an artist. We need a painting. That must be possible. Anyway, bless her. She wasn't remotely offended by the fact that we rocked up 5 minutes later with a tape measure in our hands, trying to find a painting that would fit the space. And actually, a lot of Meinke's works are quite large. So we're like going around the gallery, nothing fitted. We were going around her house, nothing fit. And then she's like, okay, there's one last place we can look, which is actually in her studio, which is a ramshackle shed building weirdly round the back of Casa Fuzetta. I didn't even know at the time
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that she had it. Anyway, so we're in there scrabbling around trying to find something, and tucked away in a back corner, I spy something green that looked like it might be the right size. And actually,
no.
Exactly, art by the yard. And actually, it
art
was
in the yard in this case. Sorry.
and actually, what it was 3 panels.
Oh yeah,
3 panels. And so suddenly we're like going, we can make that work, because we have them propped up, and so you can play with the dimensions. So,
also interesting, sorry, little segue here. Interesting spiritual connection to triptychs and art.
True.
Never thought of that. Anyways.
Yes. Anyway, so we take them back, and really at this point just thinking, at long last, after a couple of hours of searching, we found something that will physically fit.
Yeah.
Yes. But of course, they're perfect.
They're beautiful.
They're absolutely beautiful pieces. Meant to be. I did have to do a little side deal with Meinke afterwards, because going, I think they're going to have to stay here.
Yeah, they're beautiful. I absolutely love those paintings, actually.
Yeah.
Do you have more? I think you do have a few more. Am I right?
Maybe. I've got one waiting for me, and there is one other up already, which is in the living room, and I love it. It's, again, both the portraits in the library, and particularly the one in the living room, which is painted on wood panels and feels like linen blowing in laundry, blowing in the breeze. Very unusual pieces, not Meinke's normal style, which also involves a lot of goats and animals. And I have one of those that's waiting for me. But anyway,
the linen blowing in the wind, there's a little story with that one as well, as I recall.
Of course. And I'd seen it at an exhibition that Meinke had a few months, maybe even a year before. And I remember, and I really liked it, but with everything else going on and the rather large sums of money that were having to be spent on the renovations, I hadn't done anything about it. But in the way of these things, one day we had a lovely travel journalist who I nicknamed Mrs. Portugal. Real name, Mary Luciana. She is the doyenne of luxury travel, not just for Portugal, but around the world. And whether that's for the Telegraph or the Conde Nast Traveller, you name it, she writes for them, and such a nice lady. Anyway, we were doing a tour of the house, and we finished at that time, we finished in the library. And I was telling the story about the portraits by Meinke. And she's like, Meinke, her husband had commissioned a surprise family portrait by Meinke for her 40th birthday.
Oh my gosh.
But she had never met Meinke. And I'm like, I had dinner with Meinke last night. I know she's in town. Do you want to go and meet her?
Fantastic.
She's literally 2 streets away. And Mary was like, absolutely, yeah, cool. So we nip over to Meinke's gallery, and again, we're having a chit chat, and there's the linen blowing in the wind on the gallery floor. And I'm like, ooh, oh God, I love that. I still really hanker after that painting. And Meinke starts talking and starts telling the tale of where she was when she painted them. And she was going, oh yeah, no, because I painted that painting and the portraits in the library on the same trip. They're the only paintings I did on this trip when I went to a place called Vézelay in France. And I'm like,
wow.
Backtrack, because as you will remember, Todd's been on a spiritual journey, and he's been traveling across Europe with what I call the spooky crew and on various pilgrimages and to various sacred, important spiritually places. And eventually he was successful in persuading me to go on one of these trips. And the first one I said yes to going to was to none other than Vézelay.
Wow.
Which is just, I'll put a link in the notes, is just southeast of Paris, and was the starting point for one of the crusades.
Wow. Okay. Goosebump moment. And actually, wow. I'm going to stop you there. It's a perfect place. That's a high point to finish on. Quite a story of synchronicity.
Yeah. What are the chances?
What are the chances?
This is why the podcast is called
House of Stories. Absolutely. And what a story it's been. In the next episode, I'll ask you to share how you found your tribe of retreat leaders. And in fact, we'll meet Kat, founder of Cheeky Yoga Club, also one of our favorite interviews, who started as a guest at one of the first retreats and has since hosted several others with Casa Fuzetta.
In the show notes, you'll find a link to an Instagram reel where I show the evolution of the building from start to finish. And don't worry, it's only 30 seconds long.
A quick trip.
I've also got links and details for the architects and the interior designers we were working with on Casa Fuzetta. And there is a link to our Pinterest account where you can find boards for inspiration and sourcing tips. I've also included links to Casa Cubista and to Meinke Flesseman's gallery.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode and would love to know what you think of it and of the series. If you have any questions or thoughts for future episodes, please feel free to email us in the address listed in the link below. And last but not least, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the series and help spread the word, sharing it with your friends near and far. See you next time.